right, guys, we are finishing Whatshisface. So that's exciting, and we'll see how this actually ends. All right, chapter 25. Places everybody. It's the wolf, Cooper rasps, pedaling like mad. The bike speeds up, but Cooper knows it's a lost cause. No bicycle can outrun a car. The rolls closes the gap quickly, pulling even with the bike. At the wheel is the security guard from the museum. In the passenger seat is Mr. Wolfson himself. The security guard gives a warning honk and motions for Cooper to pull over and stop. Suddenly, there's a loud boom as the car's right front tire blows out. The rolls goes down on one rim with a screech and a shower of sparks. The driver wrestles the wheel for control and brings the crippled automobile to a lurching halt 3 inches from the ditch. Cooper pedals on, streaking away fast as relief supplies his aching body with renewed strength. What happened, Cooper Vega? Cooper allows himself a strained smile. I might have been too hard on your dad's legacy. Maybe his acid works better than I thought. He risks another look over his shoulder, and far behind him, the 2 occupants are out of the car, investigating the damage. The angry billionaire is talking on his cell phone. The ride is long and grueling. Soon Cooper's so sweaty that he barely trusts himself to handle the GX4000, which is the only source of time updates. 12:04, 12:17, 12:33. The return trip is even taking longer than he thought because the school is atop one of Stratford's original 3 hills, which means the path ahead is mostly rising. Call time was more than an hour ago. He can only imagine what must be going on in the gym. You can have Romeo and Juliet without second-hand watchmen. Without Romeo, you're finished. Being Whatshisface is the best he can hope for now. What the cast and crew are probably calling him is a lot of worse than that. And whatever chances he might have had with Jolie are circling the bowl. He checks the phone again, 12:41. 19 minutes to curtain. If he somehow gets there in time, he'll still need costume and makeup for sure. He's sweating too much for any powder to sop it up. And even then, it'll take until Act 4 for him to catch his breath. Maybe Brock's nasal twang would be better than a soundless whisper. Roddy provides encouragement through the earbud. Treadle strong, Cooper Vega. Thou shalt win the day. Don't bother, Cooper pants miserably. We're too far away. It would take a miracle for us to get to school in time. All at once, a car drives through the intersection ahead, screeches to a halt and reverses to block their path, and silently, the window retracts to reveal Veronica in the passenger seat, Chad at the wheel. Get in the car, she shrieks. I have to go to school, he shouts back. We know that. Half the town's looking for you. Get in the car. Abandoning the bike against the mailbox, Cooper hurls himself into the back and lies there, hugging the knapsack with precious manuscript inside. You're some wacky kid, Chad comments, roaring into a U-turn. Veronica's already on the phone. Call up the search party. We've got him. Yeah, he's okay. If you don't count stupid, we'll meet you at the school. Bye, Mom. Mom? Cooper echoes in a horror. How does she know about this? When you didn't show up, Mr. Marchese calls the house. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Dad was this close to bringing in the Army Rangers. Way to go, Cooper. If this is a cry for attention, mission accomplished. Cooper holds his head. Now his parents are upset. This day is like poison ivy. Every time you think the worst is over, another body part starts to itch. And the craziest thing is he'll never be able to explain that all of this is their fault. They're the ones who bought him a phone with Hitchhiker in it. And by the time they reach the school, the parking lot is packed with cars. Curtain time is 8 minutes away. The show is a sellout. Chad wheels them along the front drive, and Cooper leaps out to find himself in the arms of his tearful mother. Later, Mom, I've got to get into costume. His father isn't as emotional. There'd better be an explanation, mister. And there is, but not one that would make any sense. He is rescued by all of the people, Mr. Marchese. The director's face is so lacking in color that he doesn't appear to have lips. His mouth is just a narrow, horizontal slash. He's covered in even more perspiration than Cooper, who has biked halfway up a mountain, and his words are just as breathless. I know you must have a lot of questions for your son right now, he tells the Vegas, but you'll have to wait. I need my actor. He grabs Cooper by the wrist and starts towing him into the building. Mr. Marchese, Cooper manages. I'm so sorry. I don't want to hear it, the teacher cuts in. Save your breath, you're going to need it on stage. Lucky for you, we're holding the curtain a few extra minutes. Mr. Wolfson is running late. He had car trouble. Right. Maybe he got 16th century acid on his tire. There's a lot of that going around. Backstage, the cast is frantic. They take in Cooper's last-minute arrival, some with relief, most with hostility. Dude, we were worried about you, Aiden calls as Cooper rushes past. But the worst is facing Jolie. She regards him as a combination of accusation and hurt. Honestly believed drama was more important to you. I honestly thought you cared. I do. Before Cooper can draft some kind of explanation, Mr. Marchese shows him into the locker room. Get changed. The director orders. I'll tell makeup you're on the way. The heavy door closes and Cooper finds himself alone once more. Hark, Cooper Vega, comes Roddy's voice through the earbud. Did I guarantee thou wouldst be here to perform thy part? Is that what you get out of all this? Cooper explodes. That everything's hunky-dory? My parents are mad, the teachers are mad, the kids are mad, and Jolie hates my guts. Thou shalt win her over with thy Romeo, Roddy promises. I'm sweaty and dirty. I smell like a hog. I don't know how she's going to stand beside me on stage, much less decide she likes me again. Cooper throws off his clammy, dusty clothes and struggles into his tights and tunic of Romeo Montague. The backpack and his precious cargo he stashes inside locker 82 for 1582, the year Roddy was born. I'll talk to you after the play. He removes the earbud and places it on the shelf above the bag. That leaves only the phone. He's afraid to find a place to stash it so that Roddy can see his masterpiece before performed. He rushes out of the locker room. Make up, Mr. Marchese orders, beckoning. Cooper dashes on the stage. The curtain is down, but he can hear the excited buzz of the crowd on either side. He locates a spot in wings just out of the audience's view. The papier-mâché Verona City wall has a small tear in it, and he inserts the GX4000 into the slit and taps it down so the only corner with the camera lens sticks out. Enjoy the show, buddy, he whispers, and then runs off stage to get his makeup on. It's a rush job, but at least he'll be able to go on with a clean face. The only problem reflected in the mirror in his eyes, which are wide, staring, and somewhat bloodshot, not very Romeo-like. Oh well, they probably won't notice in the last row. Mr. Marchese appears over his shoulder. Mr. Wolfson just arrived. Places everybody. Curtain in 60 seconds. The members of the chorus rush out onto the stage. There's an enthusiastic round of applause. As the curtain rises, the narrator speaks the opening lines of the play. Two households, both alike in dignity. The words, spoken endlessly in rehearsal, light a fire under the cast. This time, it counts for real. Romeo and Juliet is on. Crew members bustle around the wings, tweaking lights, ensuring that the staging goes as planned. Actors take their positions for entrances and exits. As Cooper steps on stage for Romeo's first appearance, he checks the Verona City wall to make sure the GX4000's camera is still peeking out at the stage. He delivers Romeo's first line. Is the day so young? As soon as the question is out of his mouth, the horrors of the morning melt away. He's playing the role as he's rehearsed so well in private with Roddy and later with the entire cast. A glance across the footlight throws him for a loop, and he almost chokes on his next speech. It's the wolf, front row and center, glaring up at him. He recognizes me. Of course he does. It was broad daylight and the Rolls Royce was maybe 4 feet away. And by the time Mr. Wolfson has surely examined the secret gallery, he knows exactly what's missing. And I'm the guy who asked about Barnabas and Ursula on the field trip. With great effort, Cooper forces his mind back to his role and soldiers on. As mad as the wolf may be, he's watching the play, not shutting it down. Maybe if we give him a good show, he'll be forgiving in a good mood. Fat chance. Now that he's been robbed of a priceless manuscript, who knows what Somerset Wolfson might do. The Vegases are seated a few rows behind the wolf. Cooper's mom is doing her best to enjoy the play, but his dad just looks ticked off. No way is he going to let a timeless classic distract him from the beef he has with his son. As for Veronica, if she's glanced in the general direction of the stage so far, it's news to Cooper. She and Chad are a few rows away, snuggling. Who do they think they are, Romeo and Juliet? Next to Chad sits his brother Brock. If anybody in the gym looks nastier and more miserable than the wolf, it's the former Romeo with two black eyes. It can't be easy for him to sit there, anticipating love scenes between his girl and Whatshisface. Brock would be thrilled to learn that Jolie has washed her hands of Cooper, her and everybody else in the 7th grade, but there's no way for him to know that right now. If they do a good job acting, they can still give the big jerk cramps. When Cooper heads off stage for Juliet's scene with Lady Capulet, Mr. Marchese is there to greet him with a slap on the back. Outstanding, the director raves, bright pink and hyper excited. I'm sorry I was hard on you, but you're really knocking it out of the park. Great job. That's when Cooper starts to notice that the eye on him aren't quite so hostile anymore. Could it be that he's starting to turn this around? Jolie will be the real test of that. Their first scene together is the Capulet's ball, where they're supposed to fall in love at first sight. Roddy believes that in spite of everything, she'll forgive him. And then again, Roddy thinks the most beautiful color in the modern world is school bus yellow. Romeo comes up behind Juliet and Cooper delivers his first words to her. If I profane with my unworthiest hand, she faces him. Shy eyes shining, and at minimum, it looks like she doesn't want to punch him out anymore. That's better than nothing. Is she forgiving him or just acting? It's impossible to tell. One thing seems clear. If he's going to win her over, it'll have to be with this performance. Luckily, there's no better play for exactly this situation than Romeo and Juliet. Cooper pours every ounce of sincerity he can muster into Romeo's romancing. He's been good before, but tonight, he's on a whole new level. The audience has no way of knowing that the overpowering emotion of his acting has nothing to do with the story and everything to do with the fact that he messed up so badly and desperately wants to fix things with Jolie. The crowd watches, spellbound by the famous star-crossed lovers, and Cooper ratchets up the passion in the balcony scene. Jolie's right there with him, matching his ardor, and the question remains, is it real or is it pure theater? If it means nothing more than she stopped hating him, he'll settle for it. It feels fantastic. The audience is totally into it, and they gasp in shock when Tybalt accidentally kills Mercutio and cry out in horror when the revengeful Romeo kills Tybalt. At intermission, the entire 7th grade is pumped. Even during the very best of their dress rehearsal, the performance was never this inspired. The actors are feeding off the energy of the audience, flushed with growing triumph. If this keeps up, Romeo and Juliet's going to be an epic blockbuster. Mr. Marchese's lips are back, and so is the color in his cheeks, which are very nearly purple. An hour ago, he's facing the disaster of having to cancel the whole event due to no Romeo, round 2. Now he's looking to go down as the greatest director the Shakespeare program has ever had. His eyes are alight as he gathers the cast and crew to greet a very special visitor. A jolt of electricity shoots up Cooper's spine. It's the wolf. Chapter 26. This one's for you. The billionaire is already applauding them as he ascends the backstage steps. Excellent work, everyone. I kept checking my program to confirm that I wasn't watching the Royal Shakespeare Company itself. As the wolf goes on about how much he's enjoying the show, Cooper suddenly realizes that the man is scanning faces, one by one, searching for somebody. Searching for me. Ah, Romeo. The dark eyes lock on Cooper. Your performance has moved me. I look forward to the second half and the aftermath. When Mr. Wolfson has returned to his seat, the entire grade swarms Cooper. It's tradition that the wolf never singles any one performer out. This proves that Cooper's Romeo is truly extraordinary. Cooper knows better. By aftermath, the billionaire is telling him that a confrontation is coming up. Probably one where the wolf holds a dagger to Cooper's head and says, "Give me back my manuscript or else." Cooper has the rest of the play, about an hour to figure out what he's going to do. What will he say? What will he give back, if anything? Can he work with the guts to tell Somerset Wolfson the plain truth? That manuscript doesn't belong to you? How can he ever explain why? As the cast returns to the stage, Cooper catches sight of Jolie looking at him. Tentatively, hopefully, he casts a smile in her direction, but she's already turned away. Oh well, he thinks, setting his jaw. It's not like she's the biggest of his problems at the moment. He's doing this for Roddy. He's going to see it through. In the second half, the actors continue to outdo themselves and the performance soars. By this time, The wolf has given up any pretense of watching Romeo and Juliet. He's focused on Cooper, staring him down. As Romeo crosses the stage, the smoldering dark eyes follow. Having a billionaire plotting against you is pretty scary, so Cooper blocks it out of his mind by concentrating on Roddy. How must it feel for the ghost to see his long-lost words come to life before him? And now that part Roddy wrote is done and Shakespeare's tragic conclusion is starting to build, what thoughts are going through his Elizabethan head? Shakespeare may have ripped off the work of 13-year-old printer's apprentice, but when it came to orchestrating a real downer ending, nobody could touch him. What began at love at first sight is soon spiraling out of control into disaster. Although Cooper has rehearsed this many times tonight, it's as if he's experiencing the tragedy for real, one by one. The plot twists unfold, each dragging Romeo and Juliet closer to the point where they take their own lives. When he comes upon her lifeless body in the Capulet family crypt, his grief is genuine. He cries. Cooper never cries, and only part of his acting. The flask of poison that he drinks is filled with water, but it tastes bitter and lethal. And when he drops it to the stage, it's more than just a fall. It feels like death. At last, Cooper and Julie lie side by side in the crypt as the narrator delivers the most closing lines of the play. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Waves of thunderous applause wash over the stage, and Cooper's eyes are closed, so he isn't sure exactly when the curtain comes down until Aidan drags him and Jolie to their feet. "Dudes," he crowed, "you killed the death scene. You owned." For the first time since the play began, Jolie meets Cooper's eyes as herself, not as Juliet. "You were fantastic." "Because of you," he tries to reply, but cast and crew are already stampeding in front of their wings. Wild with excitement, it's impossible to communicate. So she communicates it better in a better way. She leans forward and kisses him softly on the cheek. No. The only words to describe it come from Roddy. How now? Cooper gets to enjoy the thrill for about 3 seconds. The curtain goes up to reveal a standing ovation of parents, neighbors, and friends. Only one chair lacks a cheering audience member in front of him, and it's glaringly obvious as missing tooth, front row center. The wolf is gone. No, not gone. There he is, at the back of the gym in front of the far doors, ushering in 2 uniformed policemen. Fear jolts through Cooper, but he reminds himself that he has no right to be surprised. How does he expect the rich and powerful to deal with people who steal from them? I'm going to be arrested in front of the whole town, including my own parents. He wrestles his rising panic under control. There's no way to change that's what's about to happen. All he can do is follow through on his original plan. As the rousing curtain calls go on, Cooper slips off the stage. "Take another bow," Mr. Marchese urges. "You saved our play. You deserve this more than anybody." Cooper ignores him, dashing through the wings to the locker room in number 82. He pulls out the manuscript out of his bag, jams the earbud into his ear, and rushes back on stage. As he passes Verona City Wall, he plucks the GX4000 out of the crack and jams it in the belt of his tunic. "Bravo," the ghost's voice is husky with emotion. The ending might have been cheerier, but that was beyond thy control. "Pay attention, Roddy," Cooper intones. "This one's for you." The applause swells once again as the triumph Romeo strides to center stage. He holds up a hand for order, and the audience quiets down. "Thank you for coming to our play," he announces. A special thanks to Mr. Wolfson for making it all possible. The wolf does a very bad job of concealing his rage as he acknowledges his ovation and with a "you're welcome" wave. Cooper draws a deep breath and swallows hard. This is it. I want to tell you about the real play. It wasn't called Romeo and Juliet back then. It was called Barnabas and Ursula. The reason why I know about it is because I have it right here. He holds up Roddy's manuscript, fanning it out to give the audience a view of the handwritten pages. An impressed ooh comes from the seats. Cooper's encouraged that the crowd is with him, but he doesn't let it go to his head. He hasn't hit them with the weird part yet. "Cooper Vega," the ghost's tone is bewildered. "What sayest thou?" Cooper ignores him. "The thing is," he goes on, "Barnabas and Ursula wasn't written by William Shakespeare. It was written by a 13-year-old printer's apprentice named Roderick Northrop. In 1596, before the play was done, Roddy died of the plague. The unfinished manuscript was discovered under Roddy's mattress by Shakespeare, who was at the shop because he was having one of his own plays printed. So he stole Barnabas and Ursula, changed the names to Romeo and Juliet, and wrote his own ending. A confused murmur rises up in the gym to the audience. This started as a fun fact about the play, then just watched. But now this kid seems to be telling them that William Shakespeare didn't write Romeo and Juliet. Not only that, but he ripped it off, from a dead 13-year-old no less. What kind of crazy story is that? The Vegas are staring at their son in open-mouthed amazement. Even Veronica has torn her eyes from Chad to gawk at her brother. Brock looks completely lost himself, his bandage. None of this was part of the script when he was Romeo. Only the presence of the two cops is keeping the wolf from leaping on stage and duct taping Cooper's mouth shut. "Cooper," Mr. Marchese hisses. "What's this about?" Cooper forges on. He has to make his point until he still has everybody's attention. Even though Shakespeare gave the play a tragic ending, it was always Roddy's plan for Barnabas and Ursula to live happily ever after. He didn't survive to write the last two lines, but here's what they were going to be. He reveals the conclusion the ghost told him he had in mind. No greater tale of joy could come to pass than this of Ursula and her Barnabas. Soon, some of you might have wanted to see that happy ending, Cooper continues. Some of you might think the sad one is better, but the good parts, the stuff that makes this the greatest love story ever, that was all Roddy. He died before he could get credit for his work, but I think he deserves a big thank you from all of us. Dead silence greets this statement. Undaunted, Cooper tucks the manuscript under his arms and begins to clap. Those few seconds, when he's the only one, are the loneliest of his entire life. He hears a second pair of hands. Jolie steps up to stand with him. With Romeo and Juliet both on board, the entire cast and crew bursts into applause. Slowly, like ripples crossing a pond, the audience joins until the ovation is deafening, far too loud for anyone to hear the click. What happens next will never be forgotten in the town of Stratford, even though no two people saw exactly the same thing and many saw nothing at all. A shimmering form rises above the lead actors on the stage. A trick of light, perhaps. The power of suggestion. A cloud of smoke from overheated spotlights. Or some say the slender silhouette of a young teenage boy taking an elaborate bow. The figure shifts, stretching to envelop the manuscript in Cooper's arms. The glittering mass begins to spin, losing its shape as he picks up speed. With a loud pop, a footlight blows high above, two spotlights short circuit into a shower of sparks. Boom! The main lighting array goes off like firework display. For an instant, the stage is as bright as high noon. Then it's over, leaving actors and spectators alike squinting in the gloom, jittery with alarm. A moment later, the regular gym lights come on. Smoke from the burst lighting hangs heavy in the air. The cast and crew of Romeo and Juliet stand motionless on stage. Cooper at the front. The mysterious shimmering cloud is gone. Gone, too, is the manuscript of Barnabas and Ursula. Chapter 27. Under Arrest. That day, Cooper becomes the first Romeo ever to be arrested after a performance of Romeo and Juliet. Within 30 seconds of the gym lights coming back on, he's flanked by the two cops, marched off the stage, and Veronica almost gets arrested with him for trying to wrestle her brother away from the officers. Cooper's amazed. Who knew she even liked him, much less she'd be willing to take on armed policemen to keep him out of custody? He ends up in the principal's office, one-on-one, with the wolf, while the Vegases are waiting outside. The cops are in the gym, searching the backstage area and locker room for the missing manuscript. "All right, kid, where is it?" the billionaire demands. "I don't know," Cooper replies honestly. "You saw what happened. Everybody did." "I saw some sleight-of-hand trick," the wolf acknowledges, "the kind of misdirection tactic every third-rate magician learns on one day." "Seriously?" Cooper challenged him. "You think I rigged all those lights to blow just to give me a few seconds to stash the manuscript in a secret hiding place? Do you really think I know how to do that?" The dark eyes are nearly black now. "You knew how to break into my museum. You knew exactly what to steal." Cooper flushes, shamefaced. "I admit that. I'll pay for whatever damage I did, but I can't tell you where the manuscript is now, Because I don't know. It was under my arm when the lights went out. When they came back on, it was gone. Pay for the... Sorry. Pay for the damage? Mr. Wolfson snorts bitterly. A priceless manuscript is missing. Who pays for that? Sorry, Cooper mumbles. He can't tell the billionaire the truth. He didn't steal Barnabas and Ursula. He restored it to its rightful owner. On the other hand, the wolf didn't steal it either. He wasn't the one who pulled it out from under the mattress of a poor dead apprentice. Shakespeare himself did that, long before this man was even born. Still, Mr. Wolfson probably paid a lot of money to buy it. Well, at least you'll get the insurance money, right? Cooper ventures. The wolf is tight-lipped. The manuscript isn't insured. Cooper's stunned. How come? Were you worried that something might happen to it? Something did happen to it. The billionaire looks away. All at once, Cooper has the answer. You never insured it because you couldn't admit it existed in the first place. It's the only handwritten Shakespeare manuscript in the world. There's just one problem. It's in the wrong handwriting. It's proof that Shakespeare ripped off Romeo and Juliet, and if he stole that, who knows what else he stole? You've got a whole museum of stuff that would be worthless if Shakespeare turned out to be a fraud. The wolf draws his shoulders up in anger. The Bard of Avon is not a fraud. Copyists rewrote plays by hand all the time back then. How else could the actors learn their lines? Yeah, but those copyists didn't change the names of the characters. Move the setting to another story, Cooper retorts. Or by Roderick Northrop at the top. Roderick Northrop, the billionaire sneers. Where did you get that tall tale? My researchers tell me there might have been as many as 3,000 Roderick Northrops in England around that time. How many of them worked in the very same place where Shakespeare had his printing done? Mr. Wolfson grimaces. That story is patently absurd. Yes, there was a boy of that name apprenticed to the shop of Mannering and Brown. So what? As if any 13-year-old could be capable of creating the glory that is Romeo and Juliet. Hey! A tsunami of irritation washes over Cooper. You can say bad things about me, but lay off Roddy Northrop. He's a good writer, better than Shakespeare. And if he'd ever lived to write the ending, you can bet that it would have been such a bummer. The billionaire frowns disapprovingly. You can talk about this long-dead boy as if he's a personal friend of yours. Cooper almost says maybe he is, but he bites his lip instead. Why give this powerful man any more ammunition against him? There hasn't been a peep out of Roddy since the end of the play. True, that was only 45 minutes ago. But 45 minutes of silence isn't Roddy's type. 3 minutes is a stretch for him. Cooper isn't quite ready to let himself think about what this might mean. His reverie is interrupted by the return of the two police officers. Sorry, Mr. Wolfson, the older cop offers. The search turned up nothing. I don't know where your property is, but it's not here. I see, the billionaire rumbles. I suggest we take the kid in for questioning. The other goes on. Could be he passed the manuscript off to an accomplice when the lights went out. We need a detailed description of the missing article and a photograph, if you've got one. Also, an estimate of the value. There's a long silence from Stratford's leading citizen. At last, he speaks. Officers, I hope you'll forgive me. This has been one big misunderstanding. Nothing is missing. It's all part of the truly remarkable performance these young people put on today. The older cop is unconvinced. What about the break-in at your museum this morning? Vandalism, the billionaire assures him, an unrelated incident. You said an important manuscript was stolen. Merely misplaced. I just heard from my people. We were mistaken. Everything is where it should be. It's pretty obvious that the officers don't believe him. On the other hand, he's Somerset Wolfson. No one in Stratford will call him a liar, not even the police. You're dropping all charges, then? The older cop asks him. Of course, replies the wolf, nearly choking on the words. As the officer exits, Cooper realizes how lucky he is to be off the hook. Too well he understands that if Barnabas and Ursula wasn't a threat to Shakespeare's almighty reputation, he would still be under arrest right now. Thank you for clearing my name, he says. The billionaire scowls. Your name isn't clear with me. I'm watching you, kid. I can afford a lot of eyes to help me. If I ever get word that my manuscript is out there somewhere, you can expect all the trouble you dodged today. You won't, Cooper promises. He has no way of knowing this, yet somehow in his heart he is certain that Barnabas and Ursula is safe in the hands of the author. Without another word, Somerset Wolfson gets up, walks quietly out of the room, brushing right past the Vegases and Veronica, who are waiting in the outer office. Before rushing to rejoin his anxious family, Cooper can't resist pulling the GX4000 out of his pocket, checking for Roddy. A single text awaits him. Time, 3:11 p.m. Precisely the moment the ghost in the manuscript disappeared. Holding the phone in trembling hands, Cooper reads it. I shall never forget thee. Chapter 28. A Gray Lie. The ride home is only half a mile, but the Vegases managed to pack a lot of interrogation into it. What happened at the end of the play? What was that speech accusing Shakespeare of stealing Romeo and Juliet from a dead kid? It was part of the show, Cooper tells them anyway. Not a white lie exactly, but at least a gray one. Anyway, the wolf pretty much implied that to the cops, and no one would ever challenge a statement from him. It didn't seem like that, Mrs. Vega counters. A million schools put on Romeo and Juliet, Cooper reasons. We wanted to make ours a little different, memorable. I've never going to forget this, puts in Veronica, giving Cooper a sharp elbow. Seriously? Cooper persists. That manuscript, it was a prop. So how come Mr. Wolfson tried to have you arrested? Captain Vega demands. Cooper shrugs. He didn't understand at first. When it comes to Shakespeare, that guy has no sense of humor. Once I explained it to him, everything was okay. You saw. Mrs. Vega won't let it go. But what happened on stage, at the very end, there was a cloud. It looked like a person. You imagined it, Mom. The lighting went crazy, right before it blew. I saw it too, Cooper's father agrees with her. Same, Veronica adds, and that was definitely before the lights went kablooey. Fine, Cooper says in exasperation. What do you want me to tell you? It was the ghost of Roderick Northrop coming back to take his manuscript. Claim credit for the play Shakespeare stole. Does that make sense? The entire town of Stratford saw the ghost of a 13-year-old kid. What's your next transfer, Dad? We've got to get out of this place before we end up nuts, too. Captain Vega snorts. I suppose you think you're funny. You want to talk about ghosts? Show me the ghost who made off with our toilet plunger. The family laughs, and Cooper sinks back into his seat, toying with the idea that he might just get away with this. The Vega seems satisfied, and the wolf sure isn't going to spill the beans. Still, he wonders, how do you convince an entire gym full of people that they really didn't see what they saw? Faulty wiring disrupts triumph in a school play. The Stratford Globe local news. School board officials confirmed that faulty wiring was to blame for the failure of the lighting array during Stratford Middle School. Otherwise, flawless production of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. The incident occurred during the curtain call. The exploding bulbs created such a display that some observers reported that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Rapid fire of flashes, multicolored light, often create optical illusions, commented Somerset Wolfson, sponsor of the annual event. Mr. Wolfson's love of Shakespeare has been legendary in town history. In an unrelated story, the nationally renowned Wolfson Shakespeare collection will be closed until further notice for maintenance and minor repairs. Epilogue, which is like an ending to the end. The GX4000 isn't buggy anymore. It powers down when Cooper tells it to and opens only the apps he touches. The camera takes perfect pictures without a hint of distortion. The hype is true. It really is the most advanced smartphone on the market. Cooper liked it better before. It's nothing against the phone, obviously. He misses Roddy with a longing that's almost painful. It was just a couple of months, but during that time, the ghost was more than his one friend. Thanks to the earbud, Roddy was literally inside Cooper's head. It was like having a roommate in your brain. And while all roommates get on each other's nerves here and there, the word close doesn't begin to describe what they share. It's an empty space Cooper knows he'll never be able to fill. He'd give almost anything to hear another How Now, Cooper Vega, or one more of Roddy's lectures about what me thinks. But he knows that Roddy and his manuscript are finally in the place they're supposed to be, wherever that is. It was the bow that did it, Cooper decides. The spectacular, soaring bow, where Roddy finally received an acclaim for the work of genius he wrote all those years ago. It's funny. Cooper has become famous in Stratford as the star of Romeo and Juliet, and it's stunning post-ending. He has friends now. Even Brock remembers his name most of the time, and he has a girlfriend. Roddy never gets his Ursula, but he was sure right about Jolie. But Cooper's greatest achievement is one he could never tell anybody about, not even Jolie. How many seventh graders can figure out a way to finish the quest of a 16th century ghost seeking to right a wrong he never knew about, because the injustice happened after his death? It's the kind of thing you can only hug to yourself, smiling into the darkness as you fall asleep at night. Not every what's-his-face can accomplish something like that. All right, What's-his-face is done, and be sure to look out for our next read-along.